when you think about your self-worth, your self-value, like people talk about self-care and self-love, hashtag self-love, pictures them in the bubble bath, like, you know, but it's like, but you know self-love when you are like, nah, like, I'm not going to bring less of me to any space.
Yeah.
I'm not going to leave a part of me at the door, not a part of me that I had to fight for to be here. You know what I mean? And then your relationship, I feel, can be transformed when you start to be like, I care about me too much to be any less of me in any space. You know, like I'm not going to change who I am to fit into your mold. You know, I am big enough. I'm too big for that.
Good, bad breakthrough in the building. Keeping those words to a minimum.
I'm Dreya.
I'm Drew.
I'm Keena.
What up? And this is ASIN. Okay. Super Baby, for those of you who don't know. Yeah, Super Baby in the building.
Yeah.
Loving on his daddy. Very excited to go to Eric Thomas. We are not paid sponsors of Eric Thomas yet, but we are going to his Phenomenal Life Leadership Conference. We're going from May 2nd through May 8th. It's going to be a beautiful time for the fam. Andrea, myself, Alicia, and Super Baby. You know, 10 hours of leadership development with this one. I'm just playing. Could you imagine baby getting development like that?
Oh, yeah, but I cannot imagine focusing and soaking anything in.
Yeah.
We already discussed.
Andrea was vulnerable and transparent, and she was like, babe, like, I know you love Eric Thomas. This your man. Like, you follow him. He's helped change your life. She was like, I just got the itinerary, and some days like 10 hours long of like leadership development. And she was like, so there might be a day or two where I'm just like, babe, like, why don't you go to the conference? I'm going to stay in the resort with ASIN. Yeah. And I'm like, I'm super cool with that. You know what I mean?
Get some mommy time.
It's gonna be so good.
Cause like I love family, but you know Eric Thomas, I'm like distraction 1, distraction 2. Yeah. So you tell me I ain't got no distractions with Eric Thomas? Whoa.
Yeah,
I'm super excited. I'm so excited. You know what I've been really feeling lately?
What?
I don't want to say I've been feeling bad. I don't know. I need to do some shadow work on myself and my emotions on how I feel when I say this. But like when I recognize negative self-talk within others, I become sad.
Okay. Example?
And it's and an example, like, you know, say you're coaching somebody and they, you know, through verbal dialogue, you're having a conversation with them and you recognize the fact that they don't believe in themselves or they demean their own value or they demean their own worth or they don't feel good enough. Mm-hmm. And you recognize that characteristic within them, it's been making me sad lately. Like so sad. Mm-hmm. Like to the point where like I feel like I'm absorbing that energy, almost like last week. Remember last week when you were like, hey, when we were talking about like dumping and people like giving you all their problems and you were like, hey, like my life is peaceful. Like you just giving me all this stuff. But it's almost similar to that where in the essence of like when I'm around people and I just, you know, I recognize those characteristics or those behaviors of just them not believing themselves, them putting themselves down, them saying that they're not worthy or valued, they don't feel like they're good enough. You know, when I recognize that, I just become so sad. And I, in my journey, you know, in helping find my authentic version of myself, I need to figure out how I can, you know, be in those atmospheres or be in those rooms, because I willingly am still there. Mm-hmm. You know, I love these people that I'm with. Some people I'm contractually obligated to be with. Okay. You know what I mean? Okay. But I still love them. You know, I gotta grow through it. Yeah. You know, but now I gotta figure it out because it's like I'm so in tune with my emotions that I'm absorbing their emotions. Mm-hmm. And then they're like, you know, last week, Andrea, you had said this yourself. You were like, what'd you say, babe? And you were like, I was in like a little funk, and you were like, what? You were questioning like what you were doing wrong. Mm-hmm. You know, you were questioning like, man, like. Am I doing something to cause Andrew to be distant or to cause him to be short? You know, mm-hmm. It's almost like my recovery time or my decompression time is a lot longer when I'm absorbing those emotions from people.
Mm-hmm. Your recovery, it takes you longer to bounce back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It'll take like Sometimes it's
After
like 2
being-
days.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's a full week. Like,
to bounce back.
Yeah.
When it's like nothing with you, like where you're like, wait, my life is good, peaceful. Why do I feel so drained? Oh, okay, I see. So, and then what else was you gonna say?
Well, another one. So I had a dear friend of mine, Asen's goddad and his wife. You know, we were blessed to go over for dinner the other day when Andrea was at work class with Dominique. Yeah, she got her dumps like a truck. What?
No, don't do that.
But
y'all don't know the conversation we just had. This truck dump thing. Look, we're gonna talk about this another time.
Yeah, well, mental note, dump truck.
Lord, oh my gosh. Okay.
So I've been spending a lot of time with one of my family members. The past 2 weeks, week and a half, 2 weeks. Yeah. Okay. And I hadn't realized, like, you know, this family member had been at my house like 2 or 3 times 1 week, and then one time 1 week. I didn't realize how, like, my emotional boundaries were conflicting within myself being around this person, you know, because naturally when I'm around this person, it takes me a lot to, like, be alert and like in tune. You know, we're just different people, the way we process and communicate and convey information. This person questions a lot. Like, they might ask me a question and I'll be like, oh, no, I'm good. Or like, yes, thank you. Or no. And they're like, are you sure? You know, those people were like, yes, I'm absolutely sure of myself. Like, I just said no. Like, I'm straight. Like, why are you questioning me? You know, I didn't know it in the moments that happened, but it put me in like this defense mode. You know what I mean? And then like I was changing who I was. And then with me being defensive and being short with my words, and then like, you know, not going on that deep and meaningful level, it then
She got surface.
It trickled
You
on
got
Andrea.
surface from him.
She got surface because of my surface from that person.
Yes.
And I
and you was like, where's the depth?
Yeah, I was.
Yeah.
Because normally when something's happening, like I can tell, like something transpired, and now Andrew is dealing with it.
Yes.
And this time it just came out of the blue, and I was like, what is happening? Went through the kids. I was thinking about the kids, thinking about I was like, we made it through that. We processed this, we processed that. And I still couldn't put my finger on it. I was like, okay, well, Dreya, what did you do? Were you guys fighting this week? Were you short this week? Like, I really just started diving off a deep end, trying to figure out what I did wrong. And then I brought it up to him, and he was like, no, babe, it wasn't you. Like,
so this is the question. This is the question I have for both of you. This is what I want to talk about.
Okay.
And before I ask the question, I do want to preface this in being your true version of yourself. I'm a firm believer in never removing myself from my own reality. So if I'm in a room that's making me uncomfortable, I'm either going to grow through it and talk through those things if it's loving and safe and supportive, or I'm going to remove myself from that atmosphere. I'm not going to sit there and not assert myself and just be quiet and like take abuse. Does that make sense? So my question is this, is without removing your aura and going into a safe space in your conscious and not being able to recollect what happened in that moment because you drifted, you know what I mean? You went somewhere else. Without doing that and staying connected, how do you stay connected in that moment when you are growing through things with somebody that's in your intimate circle, but still like protecting your peace, you know, protecting your emotional aura and making sure that you can transition into like the next day or the next moment in your life?
I'm gonna say that I took this from Keena, because she's all about setting boundaries. I just, you know, when people think about boundaries, they often think that you are trying to disconnect, but that's not what you're doing. You're showing them how to connect with you within your own boundaries. So it would just be setting boundaries. You can still grow through anything that you need to with setting boundaries.
I'm still trying to figure out what exactly when you say like sitting in a room, you said like sitting in a room, stay within your reality, not taking abuse, not drifting. And so I'm right now, I'm still trying to grasp the picture that you're painting.
Okay, let me reframe this. Can you grab it real quick?
Yes. Yes.
So there are two different things that I'm talking about here, just so the viewers aren't confused and so we're on the same page. One scenario, and we'll mental note one scenario. One scenario was me feeling sad when I observe other people doubting themselves.
Okay.
That's scenario one. Mm-hmm. Okay. So we'll just we'll write down sadness from others observing character. Okay. We'll mental note that, okay? May not make sense English-wise, but sadness from others observing character. Okay. That's scenario one. Mm-hmm. Scenario two was
when you was with
me spending time with a family member.
Your family member.
Yep. And I normally don't spend time with this family member. Not as much time as I did over the last 2 weeks.
Okay.
This family member, normally I'm so short with this person that they almost think I'm introverted.
Okay. And they were asking you more questions and you was changing who you were.
Yeah, I'm typically more on the defense with this person. I typically have to assert myself multiple times because they question.
Okay.
Almost like
so it doesn't feel safe. Is that what you're saying? You feel like you have to be on the defense?
Yeah, I agree with that. Like I don't think physically safe.
Not physically safe, but like you feel like you have to
safe.
Be on point, on guard for like whatever type of curveballs you're gonna receive.
Yeah.
Or he completely just checks out. Like he will literally remove himself and just go somewhere else. Like his mind just,
in his head.
Yeah.
So that's when you mean when you say so then when you said I'm not gonna take the abuse, what is that?
Well, maybe I shouldn't use the word abuse because I think abuse is a very
like they were being verbally abusive towards you.
No, I think that could be a violent. I think in the way we're using it with our audience, that could trigger something different.
Okay.
So my understanding of the word abuse, I need to work on that.
Or just as long as we have context and framework, you can say the color blue, and I'm gonna know what you mean.
Yeah.
As long as we have the
framework
established.
Right. You know what I'm saying? Exactly. So my question was referring to this family member is like, Andrea's noticed this, like I'll mentally check out, but then, you have to pull yourself back into reality. Now, my question was based on the fact, because I got some advice from some people and saying, hey, you still have to be like your aura and who you are and be around these people, but then you have to go to a safe space. And then when they leave, get all that energy out. But to me, that's like programming yourself to remove yourself from a reality. And I don't want to do that.
Right.
I want to be in the moment.
Yeah. So
my question is, how do you remain in the moment when you are on that defense? Like, is it affirmations I need to do? Do you guys think? Is it like manifestations? Is it like I need to check myself every, 15, 20 minutes and make it all about me and my accountability and the things I'm working on? I just don't know.
I think that first of all, if you participate, you know what I mean? In sharing space and dialogue with that person, that is a decision that you're making.
Yeah.
Right.
I agree with that.
And when we talk about, when we were talking last time about in the episode last week about, you decide whether you want to engage with them. Mm-hmm. They decide whether they get to decide whether or not they want to engage with you in that way. Why do you feel obligated to engage with this person? Why? She looks like she knows.
I mean, she birthed me. You know what I'm saying? I don't know.
But okay, and so this is okay, good. So it's good to be vulnerable and transparent, and maybe she don't listen to the show. Or maybe she did.
And that,
it's okay. It's okay either way.
And he did. Andrew's so committed to connecting with people that he feels like if he doesn't,
so we need to. But we need to be clear about these things, because. To be we might have, I don't know how long we've been recording right now, but it's we might have spent 10 minutes going in circles when this is a very common thing that people go through.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I think to even be transparent and say I am conflicted because I want to have distance and boundaries, to assert boundaries with your mother.
Yeah.
is very different from asserting boundaries with them, because there is
it's very difficult.
It's difficult, and it's also not uncommon either. Yeah. There are people who have these questions and concerns, curiosity, so we got to be transparent about those things, because that is not like the same thing as like an acquaintance or a friend.
Yeah. So like just choosing to like remove yourself and choosing
because
to, like,
there is so much of the guilt and the childhood trauma and those issues and stuff like that is very unique circumstances when it's like with a parent. Even if we go back to that question, why do you feel obligated to be with them? Then your answer is because they birthed me. So you feel guilty. Like you feel like you're obligated. And the thing is like, you think about any relationship that you have in your life, even with your mother, even with your significant other, your fiance. Tell me how you feel about this when you say this. I remember I was listening to this episode, Keena and DeVal's episode. Do y'all know Keena and DeVal Ellis, the Ellises? Mm-hmm. They have a podcast called Dead Ass. Okay, that doesn't count as a cuss word because that's the name of the show. Okay, but they have their podcast, and there was an episode called Be My. I'm not gonna say this right, so I'm gonna say vacation. But that's not the word he said. Be my vacation, not my obligation. Something like that. Okay.
I like that.
I'm not saying it proper, but basically what he said in that episode was, I want to have you in my life because I choose you being in my life. Because I feel like, this is me speaking, if you are engaging with anybody because you feel obligated to instead of honored to, then you are going to have resentment and you are not honoring your true self. And 9 times out of 10, if you're engaging with somebody because you feel obligated to engage with them instead of honored to engage with them, you're 9 times out of 10 not safe enough to show up as your authentic self. They don't give you space to be who you are. You don't feel accepted. Then you're going to be resentful because every time that you're around that person, you feel like you are being stagnated, stunted, stifled. You know what I mean? And I don't know, like, you tell me if that feels true or not for you, but that's just my my understanding of engaging and connecting with someone who you do it out of obligation, it's like you end up being, I feel like it becomes resentful because it's like, oh, here I go doing this again. Here I go huffing and puffing to do this thing that I don't want to do. Let me get it out of the way.
It's almost like a chore.
Exactly. And life is way too short and you are too valuable. She also is too valuable, right? Like, even if you were going to look at it from a perspective of mutual respect between people, like if you look at it from the perspective of, you know what, like I really care about myself so much so that I'm going to show up authentically into every space, and I'm not going to stifle myself. I'm not going to dim my light, I'm not going to be any less of who I'm not going to leave parts of me outside of the door because I don't feel like I'm fully welcomed in those spaces. There's not enough space for me to fit in. I'm just not going to go. You know what I mean? But when, and I'm telling you this from my own experience, self-love and understanding, like I knew I loved myself when I walked away from somebody and that I cared about with all of my heart.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my God, I didn't know I really loved myself. I didn't know until I had to make that hard choice. You know what I mean? So it's like when you really like, when you rocking with yourself, like the way that you like, when you really like, man, I'm really rocking with myself. Then it's like, why would I be any less of who I am? Why would I only love myself on Monday and to Saturday, but not on Sunday?
Yeah.
Why would I do it? I care about myself too much. Go ahead.
I love that you love. I love everything you're saying, G. Like,
I'm just saying, like, when you think about your self-worth, your self-value, like people talk about self-care and self-love, # self-love, pictures them in the bubble bath, like, but it's like, self-love when you are like, nah, like, I'm not going to bring less of me to any space.
Yeah.
I'm not going to leave a part of me at the door, not a part of me that I had to fight for to be here. You know what I mean? And then your relationship, I feel, can be transformed when you start to be like, I care about me too much to be any less of me in any space. Like I'm not going to change who I am to fit into your mold, I am big enough. I'm too big for that. You know, if y'all seen Lovecraft Country, like I thinking about this character. There's a character in Lovecraft Country, and I think about her all the time, and it makes me emotional every time I think about the scene. If y'all seen Lovecraft Country, I'm not gonna say her name right, Arinthia Blue, something like that. She was in Lovecraft Country. Brief thing, she had went into another dimension, and their time is not the same as ours. And she left, and she was gone for like the equivalent of like 200 years. Came back, learned all of the knowledge and the wisdom from multiple dimensions. And once she was in this space, she was like, oh my God, how can I go back to Earth? I'm too big to be there. I'm too big to fit into that space. And she left, right? And she only came back though because she had a daughter. So she was like, I gotta go back and get my baby. Watch the show, y'all. It was dope. But anyway, I'm just saying that to say, like, every time that I really rock with me like that, I'm like, I'm too big for this. I can't fit into these small spaces, these confinements. That's why I don't do, like, when people try to box me into things, labels and categories, I'm like, I'm too big for these categories and labels. I'm too multifaceted and multidimensional and complex. So anywho, I'm going on a tangent.
You are. I'm here for the ride.
But what I'm telling you, Andrew.
Dump truck.
Look, you leave me out of that. You leave me out of that. But I'm just telling you. So, like,
can I?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay,
because I was just rolling.
I love it though, because everything you just explained and everything you just described and everything you just put out into the universe, that's me all day, every day. You know, like I don't want to dim my light for anybody. I don't want to change my aura for anything or anyone. If I can't be me, I'm not going to be there. You know, with my mom specifically, with my mom specifically, it's just, you know, we're just so different. You know, like I'm fast. My processing time is fast. I'm risky. I make decisions. I'm like I do my market research. I do my, you know, calculations. But when I make a decision, I'm like, okay, boom, gone. I'm onto it. You know, my mom, she's a slower processor. You know, she speaks a lot slower than I do. You know, she's always like, hey, okay, you want to do this, but what's your backup plan? And then what's your other backup plan? Like, what's your like safety zones? You know what I mean? So like even in the way I communicate with her, like when I communicate with her, like I find myself like, I don't want to say becoming robotic, but it's almost like, you know, I have to slow down my whole aura to have a conversation with her. And it's almost like I don't want to say it puts me to sleep, but it slows me down so much
that you feel like
you know. So it's just interesting, like, you know.
Do you want to have conversations with her mom? Do you want?
Well, that's what I was telling Andrea, is like, you know, like I love my mother. We think differently, you know. There's a lot of guilt and shame on both behalves, you know, with our upbringing and, you know, what we could and couldn't have done or shouldn't have done. And I'm always telling my mom, like, hey, it's because of how you raised me. You know, you raised me to go to school, get a job, get a 401k, get a house, get a car, wash, rinse, repeat. You know, is why I'm you are an entrepreneur, a risk taker, like character development, like just go, like coach. But yeah, like I want to, I just because of where I'm at with my level of, you know, processing and vibrations and energy, and just because, not just because, but because, you know, we're all about emotions, thoughts, and actions, and boundaries and expectations, and all those different things that, you know, Andrea and our family practice. And so I have to figure out, like, what is my like time limit, you know, that I spend, if I'm gonna spend with her to reconnect on our relationship, or, you know, where is my boundaries and expectations with myself, and saying like, okay, hey, like I can spend, you know, an hour this day, but before I have to, like, you know, get ready. It's like not a boxing match, but it's just like a match with yourself to make sure that, like, you are going to be in the moment. You're going to be your organic natural self. And, you know, you guys either accept each other or not, you know, and then go from there, and then prepare myself to transition from that moment and say, okay, hey, like, it's almost like I need to go outside for like a walk and just touch the grass and like touch the trees. And I've noticed that, like, even today, I went on a walk with Asen around the restaurant a couple times, and I just felt so light. Like I felt so in tune with who I am and who who I'm becoming and who I will be. And like, that's my go-to, you know,
Okay.
is just being outside and being one with the universe and recentering myself.
So you want to figure out a way to meet your mom where she is without losing too much of who you are. Is that safe?
Yeah, I support that.
And so what is your intention when you sit down with your mother, when you interact with her?
Like, what's the purpose and intent when we interact?
Yeah, well, just like, what is your intention? Like, are you going into the conversation to prove something to her, to gain her acceptance and approval, to just be with her, have conversations?
That's the thing, is like, it's so difficult because my mom is so surface level. Mm-hmm. Like, how are you doing? Mm-hmm. What do you have planned for the day? Mm-hmm. How is this? How is that? And I feel like when people in general be like, oh, like, how is this going? Mm-hmm. You know, like, to me, that's like such a loaded question. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? I could say things are going fine, mm-hmm. you know, or I could really go into like the description of everything. Mm-hmm. But it's like, do you really want to know at the end of the day? Mm-hmm. Or are you just like trying to carry on some type of conversation?
Is it a loaded question, or does it feel like that's your internalized?
Receiving it.
Yeah. Because you can give her an answer that's just as surface as how she is to you. Yeah. You don't have to go into detail, but unless there's something that you're seeking in the conversation, you know, mm-hmm. if there is, then you're going to, whatever you naturally will talk to her about, mm-hmm. it might be the thing that you're looking for her validation and approval in, maybe.
I gotta do some shadow work.
You do.
Yeah.
You really do. And then also, like, when you recognize that you feel so depleted, right? Like, if you say the time, if you have a ritual for how to bring yourself back, because you shouldn't. I'm not here to tell you what you shouldn't do, but I'm going to break that right now. Mm-hmm. And tell you shouldn't be like that after you have time with your mother. And I think that it is because there's a void there, and it makes me think about it really, like, I could be wrong, but it really makes me think about like the way that depression works, right? Mm-hmm. If you think about depression, especially hearing how you be in a slump for a whole week after sometimes. Mm-hmm. And, like, if you think about how depression works, it's really like depression. You think about the word depression, depressed. Mm-hmm. Part of you is being suppressed. Mm-hmm. You cannot be your full self. You have to be stifled. You have to be shoved into a box. And so then, of course, you're going to take time to rise back up, to come expand back into your true full form, right? Mm-hmm. Because you was like pushed into this. Mm-hmm. So thinking about that, then it's like, what parts of you do you feel like are not safe around your mother? Mm. What parts of you do you have to hide? And then how can you find healthy ways to welcome those parts and to introduce those parts of you to her? Mm.
All very valid questions. Mm-hmm. I might have to journal.
Yeah. Or you can even talk it through. Dreya probably help you with listening and stuff like that.
Shout out to Dreya for being a wonderful listener. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. It ain't easy when you slaying like she's slaying. You know what I mean?
Like what she said at the very beginning, the boundaries, the shadow work that you have to do. I tell you this, like with my mom, me and my mom, like our relationship has really transformed. And in order for our relationship to transform, like I tell people, we had to burn it to the ground. We had to really burn down everything that we knew and that existed previously and just really be different with each other. Like, yes, I'm her daughter, but I had to get to know her like as just a human. Yeah. I tell people all the time, like a human who had 31 years of life before me, and for me to just try to get to know her. And the same thing, my dad, like, I don't think my dad doesn't listen at this point. I don't know if he probably does, for all I know. But me and him are going to talk. You know what I mean? We're going to have a talk. We're going to get to know each other as humans without the responsibility of being my father. Me and my mom get to know each other without the responsibility of her being my mother. Just me getting to know her as a person. I think that's important.
I love that. I really love that.
And then we can rebuild from there. Because then if you get to know her as a person, then you give yourself permission to be who you are.
I really love that in adult form. And I say adult form before we wrap up because, when you're an adult, we'll say like you have your own responsibilities, you have your own lifestyle, your own framework, you pay your own bills, you have your own space, and I love removing the fact that, like, hey, I'm your son, you're my mom, let's just get to know each other human to human and go from there. Because it's almost like you said, burning it to the ground, burning all the trauma, burning all those gaps and all those disconnects. Like, no, let's start right here, ground zero. You know what I mean? Area 51, and let's get it happening.
Yeah.
I work with a lot of teenagers right now where that particular like thought process may not be applicable.
Brains are still developing.
Yeah,
you
know what I mean?
Different dynamics that independence.
Yeah, there's a lot of dependencies.
Yeah, so no, I agree. It's different with.
But I do like that, especially like if you're a young adult out there, or you're, in your mid 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, however old you are, it's never too late to reach out. And I told that to Andre, like, even with some of her family members, it's like, we can always be like, you the bigger person,
And it's not even about that with hierarchy. It's just a matter of, can you accept yourself enough to accept somebody else like that?
Yeah.
But that has to start within yourself. You cannot give somebody something that you don't already have within you to offer. If you're a person who does not know the depths of empathy, you cannot offer that to somebody else because you don't know it. If you don't know that within yourself, you can't be empathetic towards. How can you do that to other people? So it's like, these things about you, then you can offer them to others. In the event that your mom is watching, we can at least acknowledge that.
Holla back, mama.
She surely is doing her best, even if that's not enough for you.
Oh, no doubt, no.
Right, and
it's not that it's not enough. It's
okay.
I don't know.
Is it enough?
I don't know in my framework, in my space, how to process and grow through the relationship at this moment. Okay. So that's the me thing. I have to figure that out.
So it might eventually be enough, or it might eventually not. We don't know yet.
Yeah.
But that's to be determined. TBD.
Next week, we're gonna talk about Dreya mama. Then we're gonna talk about Keena mama. And I'm just kidding. Then we're gonna talk about Jason's mama. Yo mama.
We don't know what we're gonna talk about.
We
never know. Okay.
You can find us on all platforms.
Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Spotify, Stitcher, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Amazon Radio.
Did you say YouTube? Good, bad, breakthrough. We're going to clean it up. Every platform, it's going to be good, bad, breakthrough.
Yeah. If it shows up still as TBD on the platforms, ain't going to do it me. Oh, and guess what else? On Spotify, if you guys listen on Spotify, the video version of this episode is on Spotify. So you can watch this show on Spotify. It's new. Not all podcasts have that access and availability, but we do because we are so dope. So you can watch our shows on Spotify.
You get to see all the dump trucks.
Our last 2 or 3 episodes have had video versions of them. So that's something new that we have that we get to offer you all. So watch us on Spotify, if not on YouTube. Thank you all so much. We'll see you next time.
One love.
Peace.
Lead with love.
Om Shanti.
Lead with love.